Welcome, determined learners and aspiring masters of language, to English Odyssey. Tonight, we're diving deep into a story that mirrors the very journey of personal growth and mastery, drawing inspiration from powerful principles. Get ready to activate your potential as we explore 12 rules for life. How one person rewrote their story and mastered their voice. Improve your English fluency. Graded reader, listen and speak. The old cafe, tucked away on a cobbled side street, was a familiar sanctuary for Elias. Every evening, after long, exhausting shifts, he'd find his usual corner, a battered English textbook open before him. But tonight the words blurred, the grammar rules felt like insurmountable walls, and the complex vocabulary, a language spoken by strangers. His dream of becoming a truly fluent English speaker, of confidently navigating the global marketplace and sharing his ideas without hesitation, felt light years away. He was stuck. He remembered a crumpled piece of paper in his pocket, notes from a book someone had recommended, 12 Rules for Life. He pulled it out, smoothing the creases. The first rule caught his eye: stand up straight with your shoulders back. It wasn't just about posture, he realized. It was about accepting the burden of being, about presenting yourself to the world with courage, ready to face its challenges. Elias sighed, consciously straightening his tired shoulders. He wasn't just learning English, he was learning to stand tall in his own life. The next few weeks were a battle. He'd open his mouth to speak English, and the words would tangle, his pronunciation betraying his efforts. Frustration was a constant companion. He remembered Rule 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. This wasn't about harsh self-criticism, but about nurturing. He started scheduling his English study like a sacred appointment, no longer letting exhaustion or self-doubt derail him. He found online pronunciation guides, diligently repeating sounds, no matter how awkward he felt. He began to see his journey as caring for a precious, evolving part of himself. One day, while practicing English conversations with a language partner online, he faltered badly. His partner, a kind native speaker, gently corrected him. Elias felt a familiar wave of shame. He wanted to retreat, to give up. Then Rule 3 echoed in his mind. Make friends with people who want the best for you. His language partner, who patiently corrected and encouraged him, did want the best for him. He remembered his mentor, a wise elder who had always championed his dreams. He realized he wasn't alone. He opened up about his struggles, and the shared vulnerability strengthened their connection. This wasn't just about English, it was about building a supportive network for all his aspirations. Progress was slow, often imperceptible. There were days he felt utterly incompetent. Rule 4 became his anchor. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. He stopped scrolling through perfect English fluency videos on social media, no longer comparing his halting sentences to eloquent speeches. Instead, he started keeping a journal in simple English, noticing how his vocabulary grew, how his sentences became slightly more complex each week. The small, consistent improvements, invisible to others, became his most potent fuel. He found himself drawn to online English-speaking communities, even though speaking often felt like a public performance of his imperfections. He remembered Rule 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. He translated this to his inner child, his evolving self. He wouldn't allow the fear of embarrassment, the fear of making mistakes, to make him dislike the courageous part of him that was trying to grow. He consciously allowed himself to stumble, knowing that each stumble was a step towards mastery. A few months later, an opportunity arose. A prestigious international conference in his field was coming to his city, and they needed volunteers with English skills. Elias hesitated. This was a huge leap, a public test. But Rule 6, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world, whispered in his mind. He couldn't control the complexity of global conversations, but he could control his preparation. He dedicated himself to focused English practice, simulating conference scenarios, studying common phrases, preparing for the discomfort. He was taking responsibility for his house, his own readiness. The conference was a whirlwind. He made mistakes. He stumbled, but he also spoke. He helped delegates. He answered questions. And he found himself, astonishingly, understanding complex discussions. He remembered Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. It wasn't expedient to volunteer for this, to push himself out of his comfort zone. It was profoundly meaningful. The connections he made, the confidence he gained, were far more valuable than the fleeting comfort of avoiding challenge. One afternoon, a senior delegate asked him a particularly nuanced question in English. Elias felt a surge of panic. He didn't know the exact answer, and he struggled to articulate his thoughts. He felt the familiar desire to retreat. But then Rule 8 flashed before his eyes. Tell the truth, or at least, don't lie. He took a breath. He admitted he didn't have the full answer, but offered to find it, explaining his current understanding in the clearest English he could manage. The delegate nodded, appreciating his honesty. It wasn't about linguistic perfection, it was about integrity. The conference ended and Elias felt a profound shift. He wasn't fluent, not yet, but he was no longer stuck. He looked for Rule 9, assume the person you are listening to might know something you don't. He realized every conversation, every interaction with a native speaker was an opportunity to learn, not just vocabulary, but nuances of thought, cultural perspectives. His journey became less about himself and more about humble engagement with the vastness of knowledge. He started teaching English to a small group of beginners, sharing his struggles and breakthroughs. Rule 10, be precise in your speech, took on new meaning. He had to be clear, simple, and accurate in his explanations, not just for them, but for his own understanding. By teaching, he solidified his own learning, finding new ways to articulate concepts he once found baffling. There were still days of doubt, of fatigue, days when the sheer scale of the English language felt overwhelming, but he remembered Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. This rule, so seemingly unrelated, reminded him of the importance of allowing for adventurous, messy, even dangerous play in the pursuit of growth. He embraced improvisation, trying new phrases, making creative mistakes, letting go of the need for perfect control. Learning English became less about rigid rules and more about joyful exploration. Years passed. Elias continued his dedicated practice, his conversations flowing with increasing ease, his vocabulary growing richer, his pronunciation more natural. He started giving presentations in English, not just in his field, but on topics that truly impassioned him. He realized he had achieved his dream. He was fluent. One evening, back in his old cafe, he opened his well-worn English dictionary. He remembered Rule 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. It was a reminder to appreciate the small, simple joys, the unexpected moments of grace amidst the complexity of life's journey. His fluency wasn't just about language, it was about the profound transformation within him, the courage to face uncertainty, the humility to keep learning, the joy of connecting. Elias had not just learned English, he had rewritten his story, one rule, one word, one courageous conversation at a time. He stood straighter, spoke clearer, and understood that the true mastery wasn't about perfection, but about the relentless, meaningful journey of becoming.